I'm Gemma Allen, here live at the New York Stock Exchange with theCUBE, connecting Silicon Valley to Wall Street. This is our Crypto Trailblazers series. Joining me today I have Vincent Kadar, CEO of Polymath. Welcome, Vince.
Yeah, thank you, Gemma.
So, you have a big mission at Polymath. You want to put every asset on the blockchain, and you're even bringing your own blockchain public.
Yes.
Let's start there. Let's unpack that.
Let's unpack that, yeah. So, we've been, a bit of history on Polymath. We've been around since 2017. We've always been focused on this space. We didn't pivot our mission. We started off building a tokenization platform on Ethereum. After doing so and after tokenizing a lot of assets with that application, we decided to build then our own layer 1 chain. Because Ethereum was it was at that point in time, it was going from proof of work to proof of stake. There was a lot of issues that we had with, around the whole compliance area and regulatory framework as well. And everything that you have to do on Ethereum and on other chains as well, and smart contracts, just to build these wrappers in order to make a compliant token or security token, it was just a bit of a nightmare because you need smart contract developers, then auditors, and then you need to manage it. So we went out on a mission in 2018, 2019 then to build our own layer 1 chain, Polymesh, right? That was created, it went live, mainnet went live October 2021, and it's been operational since then. And right now what we want to do is we want to boost the environment and raise the level of confidence of what it means to be a Web3 company, a company that's purely focused on tokenizing assets and bringing it on chain. By bringing it public, we boost that confidence, right? We're already a public permission chain. That means all of our validators have to be a financial services entities in order to validate the chain. If you're not a bank, an exchange, you don't hold a money services business license and reporting to a regulatory financial services regulator, you're not a validator on the chain, right? So we're building a network of trust.
Yeah.
How do you increase that level of trust? Bring it to the public markets, and now the token holders that have been behind this overall project from the very beginning, they now have greater level of confidence in the chain, greater level of visibility in what we're doing, right? Like what layer 1 chain is public, right? We will be. So now I've got greater level of governance because I've got a board that has to report to, again, public shareholders. I'm going to report my financials as well as a result of that. What Web3 company is doing that? And the level of transparency is greater.
Yeah, right? It gives you so much parameter control, right? And legitimacy.
Right.
I can completely understand the mission.
Exactly.
2018 to now, in the world of, crypto, Web3, blockchain, it feels like almost, a century ago in some respects, right?
Yeah.
You said offline when we were chatting before, things are moving really fast. Well, the narrative is moving fast, but parts of the system are still moving quite slow.
That's right.
Unpack that for me too. Like, tell me, what do you mean by that?
Well, and there is again, in order for an industry to move, the players have to move with it, right? And so the player environment in capital markets and the ones that are issuing security tokens in the private markets are broker-dealers. Broker-dealers need to amend their business licenses or business process licenses with their regulator, like FINRA or the regulator in Canada or even in Dubai as an example, that they are permitted to issue security tokens on a DLT, right? So there's a very small handful of broker-dealers in North America that have that in their registration, right? So they need to move and change their business process. So basically they need to spend money, go through another review process with their regulator, get approved, and now they're open for business to be able to issue a security token on a DLT, right? And so it starts in that framework. Now startups, people that maybe have money market funds, well, they can start heading down this token. Like the rule of thumb is that if you own the asset, you could tokenize your asset. You can issue a debt against that. You can raise capital for your own company, and you can bring that onto a chain, right? So you're not the registered broker dealer, but you could do that yourself. But broker dealers in this compliance framework, they need to start moving, in order to start moving the industry.
Yeah.
Exchanges are setting up private market platforms, and we saw that with, like the London Stock Exchange Group announced that I think they've launched a private markets platform under a new subsidiary called Digital Markets Infrastructure. So we see the movement happening in the market. the narrative is there. So there's a lot of positive communication. Now we're seeing assets that are coming on chain. Like anybody can crawl our chain and look at it. There's a token issuance that's happening every day. There's investors coming on board as well. And I think you asked me before about, was it KPIs?
Yes.
Yes. What moves the needle for me and what am I looking at?
Absolutely. Like, tell me, what do you obsess over? Like, what do you worry about? What do you, what excites you? Like, what KPIs are you really honing in on?
Assets on chain. That's the number one, I guess, KPI that I look at. Investors on chain or users that come on with registered wallets, just activity in general as well.
And we talked a little bit offline as well. You've had a very interesting career, right? You've had some global, you've been on some global endeavors. You've seen a lot of different activity across different markets. Right now, when you talk about regulators and from around the SEC, and there's certainly an impression, again, and maybe it's a narrative-led impression that here in the US things are moving at the speed of sound, and in other jurisdictions like in Europe, things are moving a lot slower, right? There's definitely a little bit more skepticism or concern. Tell us how you plan for that, especially as your company's in such a major kind of space of growth.
Well, it's working with all markets is really what we're doing, because we are we're a North American operating company, but we operate globally. And in my past, I've always operated globally, because you've got to move to where the market is and potentially who's going to blaze a trail. And it could be that another market could blaze a trail. Like if you follow what's happening in UAE and Dubai and Abu Dhabi, they've done some astronomical things, actually, like moving at the speed of sound. They could tokenize real estate, and they have, in a matter of 24 hours and had an oversubscription offering, right?
Yeah.
And that's because everything is starting to run on the blockchain. Their Dubai land department, so all land titles are operating on a blockchain. That makes it so easy to tokenize real estate, that particular asset class. And there will be asset classes that come to market that we've never thought about before, that, oh wow, I didn't know that could be tokenized.
And what are those kind of most surprising, low-hanging fruit that you guys have come across? Like, what has kind of surprised you in terms of its agility, and adoption?
Well, real estate is that one new asset class, and we've had a lot of, I'll call them traditional real estate brokers that contact us and they want to start tokenizing, and even explaining, and it's teaching the fundamentals that a real estate broker that sells real estate is not a securities broker that's selling a security token. You can't do both, right? And so you need to change your mindset. You need to upgrade your license. It's
not Better Call Saul.
No, exactly.
And I think that, because there is this impression, I guess, that it is a bit of Wild West, right now in this space. I think, from just an outside observer every day, you get the impression that there is a lot of crossover, a lot of pollination. But I'm sure, like you said, there's probably more guardrails and parameters than we realize, right?
Well, and the moving fast and moving slow narrative is that move fast, there's a lot of interest. The move slow part is the regulatory framework, right?
Yeah.
We want to ensure that anything that comes on our chain is coming on our chain in a compliant manner. Like, we built this chain for compliance, for regulators to feel comfortable with. And so if somebody's utilizing our platforms, and our chain as well, we want to ensure that it is following that regulatory framework. And so our first question when we engage with a customer and they want to tokenize an asset class is that, do you have legal representation? Is this underwritten by somebody? And those are two important questions. If it's no and no, well, come back to us when you have those check box off, because we're the infrastructure. We're a white label platform. We stand these things up. I don't have a broker-dealer license, and maybe I should, and maybe that is a directional thing that we'll be heading down towards in order to help push this market even faster. But we want to enable. We want to be the back office platform. Like the Microsoft that's running on your laptop, or the iOS platform. We're the operating system for the capital markets industry that's going to power this next generation of tokenization.
Yeah. Working so well, people almost don't know you're there, right?
That's right, exactly.
So tell me a little bit about, interoperability in the space, right? Like, you obviously are building your own blockchain with Polymesh. it's very parameter driven, it's mission driven, but it's also a collegial space, right? It's perhaps more collegial than tech was, 20 years ago. You mentioned Microsoft, and some of those players that have built phenomenal companies, but also perhaps monopolies at the time. Tell me about how that works, like how you guys, as an industry, I guess, cross-pollinate or cross-collaborate.
Well, we have, so there's Polymath and Polymesh, right? And so Polymesh is building the layer one chain. They have an ecosystem. BitGo is part of that ecosystem. So we have all the digital custodians that we need, to be part of, or to help power the chain from an institutional point of view. We have other issuance platforms as well, and very specific niches of partners that are there as well. We know we're not going to build everything for everybody, and that's why ecosystems, partnerships are very important to us. We have, for example, there's two companies actually, one in Canada, one in the US as well, both approved by their respective regulators to issue security tokens backed by real estate, right? RE tokens in the US, OCRE in Canada, and again, they do it in a compliant nature. They've built their own issuance platforms, they're experts in their space, and they follow the regulatory framework, right? RE tokens has even gone the next step where they've been approved by the SEC to stand up an alternative trading system to trade security tokens backed by real estate as well. So they've got a the full ecosystem that's required, and exclusively to our chain. When it comes to interoperability will happen, but it's got to be a market-led thing, right? Like interoperability and interconnect actually chains via bridges in order to bring security tokens across. Okay, what's the business? What business is driving actually that need? Especially if a chain and an ecosystem has everything that it needs, from alternative trading systems to decentralized exchanges to centralized exchanges. Okay, what's missing?
Yeah, and tell me, you mentioned earlier, like when clients come to you and say, I want to tokenize this asset, right? What are the SLAs? Like like how do those vary? Like tell us a little bit about the circumstances around timing,
right?
To make this happen.
Well, we can spin up, Polymath, we can spin up a platform for them in 24 hours. So pretty quick for us to just like, what is it that you need? We'll call ourselves the Shopify, but for capital markets, right? It's a white labeled solution. Put your logo on it, you have your own subdomain, and we can do some customization for you if that's required as well, or the end user or our customer can customize it themselves. So we're fast actually when it comes to spinning up a platform for an end customer. When it then comes to walking through the tokenization element, well, there's frameworks that are built in. It's a very basic and simple user interface that walks them through as far as, okay, what type of offering are you doing? Is this a debt offering? Is it equity? What class is it, right? And what kind of compliance do you need, right? And so no smart contracts are required because we built, and what I was talking about earlier, the whole smart contract layer, we built that compliance layer right into the chain itself.
Wow.
So you don't need to hire smart contract developers, you don't need auditors, right? It's all built in there.
So it's like completely disrupting the services industry in some respect, the professional services industry surrounding these companies too, right?
Exactly, and I find it interesting because when you come out with a new technology stack and then you put an onus on the end user that, oh, by the way, you need to hire smart contract developers. Well, how did you just make my life simpler? You didn't, right? Now I've got to go out and hire an expensive crew of developers, auditors, and now I need to manage them as well. Build it right into the chain. Make it easy for me, right? And so that's always our frame of reference, is that how do we take the cost out of what we're doing, right? If you're going to use a new tool set or technology, cost actually needs to be thought of how you're going to reduce that for the end user and then for other people in the ecosystem as well.
We talked earlier about how Polymath was here on theCUBE like 7 years ago, right?
Right.
So the tech journey in that space too has been pretty phenomenal, and I would say maybe 10 times a minute here we say the word AI. There's obviously been a collision or a synergy between AI and Web3. Tell us a little bit about how you think about that, like how you think about AI for Polymath and for the industry more broadly, and where you think the synergies are, or the challenges too,
Well, I think every industry actually, or in technology, we have these bubbles, right? There's always a bubble that forms. Web3 was a bubble before Web3. I think I remember even like years ago, like Bluetooth was a bubble. If you know, you know,
I
wow.
did not know that.
Yeah, exactly. Wi-Fi was a bubble. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But so you know, like Web3 was a bubble. We've lived through that. It's just like the first the internet bubble, if you remember that.
Yeah.
There was
Well, my mother was very reluctant to partake in the internet. She didn't think it would ever take off, right?
Right.
In 1995 in Ireland, so
Right.
you know, by God, was she wrong?
Right. But and look at the adoption and what was required in order to adopt and to get everybody on the internet right now. And there's, you know, billions of people transacting every day on the internet, from streaming to commerce to, like, if you know, we all rely on it as our, like, a source of news, our source of entertainment, and our source of commerce as well. And now we're actually putting capital markets into a different realm and having it run more efficiently. So I think actually, what was your initial question again? Let's go back to that. Because I'm going to go down a rabbit hole here myself. But
yeah. Ask you about AI.
Oh yeah, but
and the application. But you know, I think you make some good points there around, you know, adoption cycles too, right?
Yeah.
Like, we have a lot of, we talk about AI all the time, and we talk about it from the perspective of, you know, like regulated industries, non-regulated, you know, disruptors, non-disruptors. But I think cloud definitely had like a skepticism period, right? It was, you know, I think Jamie Dimon himself said that JP Morgan will never be 100% cloud-based, right? So but when it comes to AI and, you know, the space in general, I think people are all in, right? So. And if you look at the speed, even for, you know, people like us using it every day in our lives, it is quite, it's exceptional. But for your space, for Web3 and for kind of blockchain and for this whole, you know, which is also a disruptive, futuristic space, which has, I think, really had a little bit of a reimagination from the kind of public narrative in a very short space of time. How do you think about it? Like, well,
I think it'll be even easier, right? I think AI is going to play a fundamental role for doing a security token issuance, where you're going to actually have a prompt to basically structure, or and you'll ask actually the AI engine, you know, please create for me a security token offering with these regulatory frameworks, right? And so that'll be programmed for you. You're not going to even need a UI. You'll have a prompt to do that. It'll create the security token offering. AI can even do the review process as well. Is everything required? Like, am I ready to launch? Can I launch my security token offering? What's missing, right, from there? Go through all the documents as well. So I think AI is really going to help in the capital markets industry, in the traditional one at first, but then in the security tokens industry specifically.
So tell me a little bit about the IPO. You guys plan to go public in Canada this year, or am I correct? That's
correct.
Yeah, and I think you mentioned that, you know, 2 years ago when you guys first filed or made this decision, things have changed quite a bit right here in the US.
Yes.
Tell me about the plan. So have you guys got a timeline?
Yes.
Just about the exciting side of this.
Yep. So our funding round is still open. It will be closing actually soon. We are scheduled to, you know, go public before the end of this year. There's a shareholders meeting that's already been scheduled. Actually, it is an RTO actually through another operating business. We like the operating business because there were some assets in there, and there's an AI platform in the operating shell where we're reversing in. That's of interest to us, and it currently serves the capital markets industry. But the plan is go public on the Toronto Stock Venture Exchange. Now we started, like what you just said, we started this activity more than a year ago, about a year and a half ago. The US market was not open. Like, you know, if you recall, all the crypto companies were listed on the Toronto Stock Exchange, right? Galaxy was there, there was Voyager was there, several of them, and they're still there. But the migration has also happened as well. Galaxy is now listed on a US exchange, right? And now we see the floodgates opened in March, I'd say maybe April of this year is when the floodgates opened. Well, we had already picked the shell, we've already gone through the compliance, you know, and something else that we did was that we acquired our layer 1 chain back again, right? So when we created Polymesh, we spun it out as a Web3 company, what all Web3 companies do. You have your foundation, and then you've got your for-profit entity, which was Polymath. But in June of this year, we acquired Polymesh back as a subsidiary and a for-profit entity now. So now there's alignment and shared vision in what we're doing together, right? And that slowed us down a little bit because we needed to ensure that we were following all the proper regulatory approvals as far as setting up this structure and the alignment as well. So the idea is again, we'll be public by the end of this year. And what does that mean going forward? That means going forward is that we will be inquisitive in looking at other, I'd say, software companies that will help carry forward our mission, and we'll acquire them to be part of the Polymath journey going forward. Right, so we're going to be, we'll be a compounder in this industry where we'll be building a, let's call it a portfolio of other companies to be part of our journey that are going to add value to our layer one chain. So if you can bring assets on chain, we're interested in having a discussion. If you can actually be powered by our chain and even our utility token, we're interested in it in having a discussion as well. So like ATS technology providers, cryptocurrency exchange platforms, wealth management platforms, things that are actually going to help build that overall story that can be part of Polymath. Because we're not, like I said, we're not going to build everything ourselves. We have an ecosystem already with great partners and technology players that are out there, real leaders. But we also want to ensure that we help to guide the journey of where we think it needs to go.
Great. Well, Vince, hopefully at some point we'll see you here from the balcony, perhaps ringing the bell
at
the NYSE.
Yep.
If not next year, who knows,
well,
right? It's a long and exciting road ahead.
Exactly. Well, it's no mistake. Maybe that's why we're having the discussion here.
Well, thanks so much for coming on theCUBE. Wonderful to have you.
Yeah, thank you.
I'm Jem Allen here at the NYSE with our Crypto Trailblazers series. Thanks so much for tuning in.